Hi. So, it's gonna look like I'm crying through part of this. So, it's gonna look like I'm crying through a portion of this, and you just have to trust me that I'm not. It's my allergies. But, I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, and, if you know, you clicked on this and you already know what the title of it is, I really want to do more episodes where I talk about real things that are shared experiences or that people may have some sort of understanding of through their own lives. Because if you've been with the channel for a minute, then you know that it started as part of a project with me finishing school. And I'm about to finish school. I'm about to graduate in a couple of, like weeks at this point, like a month and a half. But so I've had to talk about YouTube and talk about videos and talk about approaching them as art. And part of the way that I do this is through saying that the real artistic benefit of YouTube is that it is a shared experience. It is something that while I am telling you my story and you are watching my story, it's some minuscule way your life is different for having taken in my experiences. And so, but also it is a way for people to be like, listen, there's somebody out there who has the kind of feelings that I have and has gone through the things that I've gone through. Which I really wish that I had had when I was younger, and it is so beneficial to have now. If the internet has helped me in no other way than it has been to make me feel like I'm not alone. So, I live with mental illness. I have severe anxiety, this is all diagnosed. This isn't me making this up. Though if you feel like you have severe anxiety, I don't necessarily feel like you need to have a doctor tell you, but we'll get into how it is beneficial, at least in my experience, to talk to someone of a professional capacity. Like I said, not crying. My makeup is done because I'm going to a gala in a little bit. And got my water, trying to power through this. So, I have severe anxiety. I have what is called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and I have depression. There is a pretty good history of depression and anxiety in my family, with at least 4 members of my immediate to like aunts and uncles being clinically diagnosed, and in a couple cases like gone somewhere to be treated for it. Like they were inpatient being treated for it. My anxiety has, I think, existed my entire life. When I was 18, I had a panic attack. I didn't know that that's what it was, but now that I am like looking back on it, I can see it. But it started to get real bad around the time I turned 25. I was just scared all the time of everything. So now I know that it's called catastrophic thoughts. There was a cycle to this. So the whole month, I would get progressively more scared and upset, and bad things were gonna happen, and it was gonna be really, really, really bad, and I couldn't leave, and I couldn't do things, and then my period would happen, and it would go away for about 4 days, and then it would start all over again. In the past year or two, it has gotten to the point where I had thought that I was living with it really well, and that doctors had just prescribed Xanax, which I took a couple times and I didn't like the way it made me feel. It made me feel groggy. It made me feel drowsy. I didn't like it. It didn't make me feel less anxious because I was so anxious about the side effects of it. And now I know that there are a lot of people that don't like it. There's just as many reasons not to take it as there is to take it. And if you don't like the way a drug makes you feel, don't take it. Unless it's your heart medicine or you needed to live. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are usually options, especially when it comes to mental health. And with a drug like Xanax, if you don't like the way it makes you feel, look for something else. So this past year, I had a panic attack that put me in the hospital. I started to, in the week before my period, self-harm. I would scratch myself. I scratched down the side of my face once with my nails and then had these big long marks on the side of my face that I then had to hide with my hair. It just got bad. So when I had the panic attack, I went into the hospital. I was on suicide watch. So when you go into the hospital for a mental thing, at least in the hospital I went to, there's a special part of the emergency room that you go to, and then a person has to stay in the room with you at all times to make sure that you aren't going to hurt yourself until either someone else comes, like my mother came, or you're cleared off of suicide. Somebody had to sit in the room with me. I wasn't supposed to have my cell phone, but because I was freaking out so bad, they let me keep it. It was awful, and I'm on Medicaid. I got treated a little bit differently, not because I was on Medicaid, but how I was approached about care. So a social worker came and talked to me and said that because I was on Medicaid, that I would have to go and talk to somebody else and get like a psychological screening and all these things because I'd come to the hospital for this. So that was fine. So I went and did that, like the next day. I was released from the hospital the same day, released to my mother. They didn't think I was going to kill myself. I calmed down, and that was basically it. They asked if I wanted Xanax. I told them no, and that was basically it, and then I left. I went into counseling, which for Medicaid for me means that I'm counseled by a social worker instead of, like, I guess like a counselor or someone with like a psychiatric or psychology. I don't know how that works. Anyway, she's fine. She's a nice lady. And so that was the start of me being like, okay, talking with somebody actually really helps. And if this is an option for you, maybe this is something that you can consider. Talking with somebody outside of your life. Somebody who's not involved with you, who has no bias, is really helpful. And like, so I know for my aunt, she wanted somebody who wasn't team anybody, that was just like, could be really outside of the situation and talk to her. For me, it was, I really needed someone to be like team Sarah, just for like a minute, you know, because it really felt like at that time in my life, nobody was, which is a lie, but that's just how it felt. And then so recently I agreed after a whole summer of trying to deal with my anxiety on my own and it getting progressively worse and approaching my final semester at school and working 3 jobs and doing all these other things, I was finally open to the idea of taking an antidepressant. In the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that, I've been taking an antidepressant and it has been really beneficial for me. I've noticed that my anxiety is much less, and as I'm gearing up timeline-wise towards like the week before my period, I don't feel like, this is how it was. It was like, I had to go to the dentist to get a filling fixed. And so in my mind, they were going to sit me down. There was going to be something wrong with the tooth. They were going to tell me I needed a root canal. I can't afford a root canal. Root canal is going to be too much money. They're going to have to pull my tooth. I'm going to have a tooth pulled right then and there. And that was it. I was like, I had to go get a minor thing done, but in my mind, I was going to get my tooth pulled. It's just every single thing in my life snowballed like that. Every time I had to do like anything. I would wear jewelry and I would think to myself that this is my escape rope. That as long as I have this thing on, I can leave. If the room gets too intense for me, I can leave. I would have to tell teachers at the beginning of semesters that sometimes I'm going to have to get up and walk out and leave the room because my anxiety is so bad. And that would just be it. It would just like build up inside of me. Like when I agreed to work 3 jobs, it was like, I'm never going to have any free time. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to fail all my classes. I'm going to not be able to graduate from college. I'm going to, never be able to get a job. I'm going to have to live on the streets. Like everything was like that. And so they were like, this, maybe the counselor and the nurse practitioner were like, maybe this is something that you should consider. And so I did have friends that were like, just take your Xanax. And I didn't want that. And sometimes you have people in your life who are really well-meaning and they love you very much, but they aren't you. And so they want you to do something that they think is best for you, and maybe it's not best for you because you know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. I knew what was best for me, and I didn't want to take it. But I did come to the realization that I couldn't live like that anymore. While they were pushing me to do something I didn't want to do, they were also like, well, how are you going to live like this? And I couldn't. And I think that I have some other friends with anxiety, and you can be really high functioning with terrible anxiety, but it's awful. Your existence is awful. It's just not, it's not a good time. So I did that for a long time, and now I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to be really open about what I'm going through and what I'm doing as far as care and working on this. And if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. If you have questions and you just want somebody to outside of your life to ask, you can ask me and I will do my best to answer you. I am not a doctor, and nothing that I say should be taken as medical advice. Just putting that out there. But I will say that suffering is not something you have to do. There's help. I promise. That's all I've got. So this is all I have for Real Talk today. I'm going to keep doing these because I think it's important to share our life experiences. This was because Mental Health Awareness Day was on Monday, and I should have done this on Monday, but I'm doing it on Friday. I just hit my thing. So that's it. That's all I got. If you have any questions or you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. If you want me to do like a Q&A video about being on antidepressants or how I lived with anxiety prior to being on antidepressants, like when I had it under control, I will be more than happy to answer those questions. If you want to ask me a question anonymously, you can go to my Tumblr, which is linked. It's always linked below, but I'll try and put it like here. And you can ask me a question on Anonymous, and I will do my best to answer you. If you want to, don't send mean stuff. That's all I got. That's like all I got to ask. If you want to continue to watch Vlogtober and all of the things that are happening and be up to date with it, hit the subscribe. And that's all I got. So I will see you guys next time, all right? Bye.